Do you ever wonder why you keep choosing the same kind of man? Why the relationship feels different at first, but then becomes the same story? Why you find yourself, again and again, drawn to someone who cannot fully see you, cannot fully choose you, cannot fully love you in the way you need? Do you ever ask yourself, is this my fault? Am I broken? Am I asking for too much? Or is there something deeper happening? Something in the psyche. Something you cannot see. Something that keeps pulling you back to the same pattern, the same wound, the same longing? Tonight, we explore this question, not with judgment, not with blame, but with curiosity, with depth, with the psychology of Carl Jung. We descend into the mystery of the animus, the inner masculine, the part of you that you have been projecting onto men, the part that shapes your relationships, your choices, your patterns. This is the still point, a space where the noise of the world falls away, where you can hear the soul, where women gather in the quiet hours to do the deep work, the work of Jungian psychology, of integration, of becoming whole. If you are called to this work, if you recognize yourself in these words, you belong here. Subscribe so that each time we descend together into the depths, you will be here, in the quiet hours, doing the work that matters. Let the world fall away. Let your body settle. Let your breath slow. You are safe here. You are held. And the work begins now. Inside one, the soul's longing for the masculine. Perhaps you have felt it. That pull toward a certain kind of man. The one who is strong but distant. Brilliant but unavailable. Powerful but cannot see you. You tell yourself this time will be different. This time he will change. This time your love will be enough to reach him. But it never is. And you find yourself in the same story. The same heartbreak. The same longing for something that remains just out of reach. Jung understood this longing, saw it not as weakness but as the soul's attempt to heal, to find in the outer world what was lost in the inner world. He called it the animus, the inner masculine that lives in every woman's psyche. Not the men you choose, but the archetype you project onto them. The father you never had. The hero you were taught to seek. The masculine energy you were told to reject in yourself. And so you search for it outside, in men who carry the qualities you cannot claim. The strength you were taught was unfeminine. The authority you were told to defer to. The independence you learned to fear. The decisiveness you were taught to doubt. The clarity you were told was too harsh. The power you were taught to soften, to hide, to apologize for. This is the soul's longing, not for a man, but for the masculine within, for the integration of what was split, for the wholeness that comes when you stop seeking outside what can only be found inside. Jung would say that every woman carries within her an inner masculine, an animus, a psychological structure that represents the masculine principle. And when this inner masculine is not integrated, not claimed, not embodied, it is projected outward, onto the men you meet, the men you love, the men you cannot stop thinking about. And the projection feels like love, feels like destiny, feels like you have finally found the one. But it is not love. Is recognition. Is the soul recognizing in him what belongs to you, what has always belonged to you? What is asking through this attraction, through this longing, through this pattern that repeats, to be brought home, to be integrated, to be made conscious? Insight 2, the pattern that repeats. Look back at the men you have loved, not with judgment, not with regret, but with curiosity, with the eyes of the psychologist, the observer. Do you see it? The pattern, the same man in different bodies, the same dynamic in different relationships, the same story with different details. Perhaps he is the unavailable one, the man who is married to his work, his mission, his other life, who gives you just enough to keep you hoping but never enough to feel secure, who is always on the edge of leaving, who makes you feel that if you could just be better, more patient, more understanding, he would finally choose you fully. But he never does. And you find yourself in a constant state of waiting, of hoping, of trying to earn what should be freely given. Or perhaps he is the wounded one, the man you want to save, to heal, to mother, who needs you but cannot truly see you, cannot meet you as equal, who takes your care, your attention, your energy, but gives little back, who makes you feel needed but not cherished. And you tell yourself that your love will heal him, that if you just give enough, he will finally be whole. But he never is. And you exhaust yourself in the giving. Or perhaps he is the critical one, the man who finds fault, who makes you feel you are never quite enough, never quite right, who echoes the voice of the Father who could not approve, who sees your flaws before your gifts, who makes you feel that love is something you must earn through perfection, through constant improvement, through never being fully yourself. You would say this is not accident, is not bad luck, is the psyche's attempt to resolve what was never resolved, to heal the father wound through the lover, to finally get from a man what you never got from the first man, your father. But the pattern cannot heal itself, cannot resolve through repetition. The psyche keeps bringing you back to the same dynamic, hoping this time will be different. But it cannot be, because the man is not the source of the wound, is only the reminder, the trigger, the mirror reflecting back what was never healed in the beginning. The pattern can only be broken when you see it clearly, when you understand that the man you keep choosing is not the problem, is the symptom, the outer manifestation of an inner split, of the masculine you rejected, of the father you could not reach, of the wholeness you have not yet claimed. Insight 3, the father wound that shapes love. In the beginning, there was Father, the first man, the first masculine presence in your life. And what he gave you, or did not give you, shaped everything that came after. Shaped how you see men, how you trust them, how you love them, how you allow yourself to be loved by them. If he was present, attuned, able to see you, you learn that men can be trusted, that masculine energy is safe, that you are worthy of being seen, held, cherished. But if he was absent, distant, critical, unavailable, you learn something else. Learn that love is something you must work for, that men cannot be reached, that your needs are too much, that you must be perfect to be loved. And this became the template, the blueprint for all relationships that followed. Jung called this the father complex, the psychological structure that forms around the relationship with father. That colors how you see all men, how you choose them, how you relate to them. If father was the distant one, you choose distant men. Not consciously, not deliberately, but the psyche is drawn to what is familiar, to what it knows. And distance feels like home, feels like love. And you hope, unconsciously, that this time you will bridge the gap. This time you will be seen. If father was the critical one, you choose critical men. Men who find fault, who make you feel you must constantly prove yourself. And you hope, unconsciously, that this time you will be good enough. This time you will finally receive the approval that was always withheld. If father was the absent one, you choose unavailable men. Men who are there but not really there. Who are present in body but absent in soul. And you hope, unconsciously, that this time you will make him stay. This time you will be important enough to make him choose you. This is not conscious. Is not a choice you make with awareness. Is the psyche's attempt to heal, to go back to the original wound and resolve it. But it cannot be resolved through repetition. Can only be healed by seeing the pattern, by understanding that you are not looking for a man, are looking for father, for the masculine that was never integrated, for the love that was never received. Inside 4, the projection of the unlived masculine. There is a part of you that you have never claimed, a masculine energy that lives within but has been rejected, suppressed, denied, pushed into the shadows because you were taught it did not belong to you, that it was not feminine, not acceptable, not safe. Perhaps you were taught that to be feminine is to be soft, yielding, receptive. That strength is unfeminine. That ambition is unattractive. That independence makes you unlovable. That assertiveness is aggressive. That clarity is harsh. That power is dangerous. And so you split off the masculine, the part of you that is strong, decisive, autonomous, the part that knows what it wants and goes after it, the part that can stand alone, the part that speaks with authority, the part that sets boundaries, the part that says no without guilt. And what you reject in yourself, you project onto others. This is Jung's law of projection. What is unconscious within becomes visible without. What you cannot own in yourself, you see in others. The masculine you cannot claim in yourself, you seek in men. You are drawn to strong men because you have rejected your own strength. To decisive men because you have denied your own clarity. To independent men because you fear your own autonomy. To powerful men because you have been taught to shrink your own power. And you fall in love not with the man but with the projection, with the qualities you see in him that are actually your own, that belong to you, that are asking to be integrated. This is why the relationship never satisfies. Why even when you get the man, something feels missing. Because what you truly long for is not him, is the part of yourself you see reflected in him. You would say that the work of individuation requires you to withdraw the projections, to take back what you have placed onto others, to recognize that what you admire in him is actually yours. What you are drawn to in him is actually calling to be awakened in you. Insight 5, the animus as inner guide or inner critic. Jung taught that the animus has two faces. can be the inner guide, the voice of wisdom, clarity, truth, the masculine energy that helps you discern, decide, act with authority, or can be the inner critic, the voice that judges, condemns, finds fault, that tells you are not enough. Which face your animus wears depends on your relationship with the masculine, on what you learned from father. If you had a father who saw you, supported you, believed in you, your animus is likely the guide, the inner voice that encourages, that helps you trust yourself, that gives you permission to be strong. But if you had a father who was critical, absent, or dismissive, your animus is likely the critic, the inner voice that echoes his judgment, that makes you doubt yourself, that keeps you small, that tells you are not good enough, that you must try harder, that love is something you must earn through perfection. And this inner critic shapes your relationships, makes you choose men who criticize, who cannot see your worth, who confirm what the inner voice already tells you. The work of integration is to transform the critic into the guide, to heal the father wound so deeply that the inner masculine becomes your ally, your source of strength, your connection to your own authority. This is not done by finding the right man. It is done by reclaiming the masculine within, by learning to speak to yourself with the voice you always needed to hear, the voice that says, you are enough, you are worthy, you are seen, your needs matter, your strength is beautiful, your power is sacred, you do not need to earn love, you are already whole. Insight 6, the call to descend. And so the call comes, in the quiet hours, in the moments when you can no longer ignore the pattern, when you see clearly that the same story keeps repeating, that the men change but the dynamic remains, that something deeper is asking to be understood. This is the call to descend, to go beneath the surface of your relationships, beneath the stories you tell yourself about why it did not work, beneath the hope that the next man will be different, to descend into the psyche, into the father wound, into the masculine you rejected, into the animus that shapes everything. Jung called this the journey of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating what was split, of reclaiming what was projected, of making conscious what was unconscious. It is not an easy journey. It requires you to see what you have been avoiding, to feel what you have been numbing, to own what you have been denying. But it is the only journey that leads to true love, not the love that is projection, not the love that is repetition, but the love that is recognition, the love that comes when you are whole within yourself, when you no longer need a man to carry your masculine, when you can meet him as equal, as partner, as two whole beings choosing each other not from need but from fullness. This is the love that does not repeat the pattern, that does not recreate the father wound, that does not seek in the other what can only be found within. This is the love that is free, that is conscious, that is chosen, that is real. And it begins not with finding the right man, but with doing the inner work, with descending into the psyche, with integrating the animus, with healing the father wound, with reclaiming the masculine within. This is the call. Will you answer? Will you descend? Will you do the work of integration so that love can finally be real? The journey begins here, in the quiet hours, in the willingness to see, in the courage to descend, in the commitment to become whole. Now we hold up the mirror, not to judge, not to shame, but to see clearly, to recognize the patterns that have been running your relationships, the ways you have been seeking in men what can only be found within, the projections you have been placing on lovers that belong to you. This is the mirror, the reflection of your own unlived masculine, your own unintegrated animus, your own father wound playing out in every relationship. And in seeing clearly, you begin to free yourself, to take back what you have given away, to reclaim what has always been yours. Insight 7, the man you keep choosing. Look at him, the man you keep choosing. Not this particular man, but the archetype, the pattern, the energy that draws you again and again. Perhaps you recognize him, the one who is emotionally unavailable, who keeps you at arm's length, who gives you glimpses of intimacy but never full presence, who makes you feel that if you could just be patient enough, understanding enough, loving enough, he would finally let you in. But he never does. Or perhaps you recognize this one, the man who needs saving, who is wounded, broken, struggling, who pulls at your maternal instinct, who makes you feel that your love can heal him, that your care can fix him, that your devotion can make him whole. And you pour yourself into him, give and give and give, hoping that one day he will be healed enough to truly see you, to meet you as equal, to give back what you have given. But that day never comes. Or perhaps this one, the man who is critical, who finds fault, who makes you feel you are never quite enough, who echoes the voice of the father who could not approve, who sees what is wrong before what is right, who makes you feel that love is conditional, that you must earn it through perfection, through constant improvement, through never being fully yourself. You would ask, why this man? Why this pattern? What is the psyche trying to resolve? And the answer is always the same. You are choosing the father, not consciously, not deliberately, but the psyche is drawn to what is unfinished, to what was never resolved, to the original wound that shaped everything. You are choosing the man who will recreate the dynamic you knew with father, hoping unconsciously that this time it will be different. This time you will bridge the gap. This time you will be seen. This time you will be chosen. This time you will be loved in the way you were never loved. But the man cannot give you what the father did not give, cannot heal what the father wounded, cannot fill what the father left empty, because he is not the source, is only the mirror, reflecting back the wound that was there long before you met him. And until you see this clearly, you will keep choosing him, keep hoping he will change, keep believing that your love will be enough, keep recreating the same dynamic, keep living the same story. Insight 8, the qualities you admire in him. Now look at what you admire in him, the qualities that drew you to him, that made you fall in love, that made you believe he was the one. Perhaps it is his strength, the way he moves through the world with confidence, with certainty, with power, the way he knows what he wants and goes after it, the way he does not doubt himself, does not apologize for taking up space, does not shrink himself to make others comfortable. Or perhaps it is his clarity, the way he sees things so clearly, makes decisions so easily, cuts through confusion with precision, knows his own mind, trusts his own judgment, does not second-guess himself, does not need external validation to know he is right. Or perhaps it is his independence, the way he does not need anyone, can stand alone, has his own life, his own purpose, his own direction, does not cling, does not need constant reassurance, does not make his happiness dependent on another person. Jung would say, look closely at what you admire, because what you admire in him is what you have rejected in yourself. What you see in him is what you cannot see in yourself. What you are drawn to in him is what you have been taught to deny in yourself. His strength is your strength that you were taught was unfeminine. His clarity is your clarity that you were taught was too harsh. His independence is your autonomy that you were taught made you unlovable. This is the projection. You are not falling in love with him, are falling in love with the reflection of your own unlived masculine, your own disowned power, your own rejected strength, your own denied clarity. And the relationship feels so intense, so magnetic, so destined because you are recognizing yourself. Not in him, but through him. He is the mirror showing you what you have not yet claimed, what you have not yet integrated, what you have not yet allowed yourself to be. And this is why the relationship cannot satisfy. Why even when you have him, something feels missing. Why the passion fades. Why the connection that felt so deep becomes shallow. Because what you truly long for is not him. Is yourself. Is the part of you that you see reflected in him. Is the masculine energy that is yours to embody. And until you claim it, you will keep seeking it in men. Keep projecting it onto lovers. Keep hoping they will carry for you what you are afraid to carry yourself. Insight 9, the ways you shrink yourself. Now look at how you are in relationship. Not who you are alone, but who you become when you are with him. Do you recognize her? The woman who makes herself smaller, who softens her voice, who holds back her opinions, who does not speak her truth for fear of being too much, too intense, too demanding, too difficult. Perhaps you recognize this, the way you defer to him. Ask his opinion before trusting your own. Look to him for validation, for approval, for permission to know what you already know. The way you doubt yourself in his presence. Second guess your instincts. Question your judgment. Make him the authority and yourself the student. Or perhaps this, the way you accommodate. Adjust yourself to his needs, his moods, his preferences. The way you become flexible, adaptable, easy. The way you say yes when you mean no. The way you go along when you want to resist. The way you make yourself convenient. Undemanding. Low maintenance. The way you pride yourself on being the cool girl. The understanding woman. The one who does not make waves. Or perhaps this. The way you give and give and give. Pour your energy into him, into the relationship, into making it work. The way you take responsibility for his emotions, for the connection, for keeping the love alive. The way you work so hard, try so much, give so freely, while he does so little, tries so little, takes so easily. You would say, this is the unlived masculine. This is what happens when you reject your own strength, your own clarity, your own authority. When you cannot claim these qualities in yourself, you give your power away. You make him the strong one in yourself the weak one. You make him the clear one in yourself the confused one. You make him the authority in yourself the follower. And you do this not because he demands it, but because you cannot bear to claim it yourself. Because somewhere deep inside, you learn that to be strong is to be unfeminine. To be clear is to be harsh. To have authority is to be threatening. To take up space is to be selfish. To have needs is to be demanding. To set boundaries is to be difficult. And so you shrink. You soften. You accommodate. You give your power away. And you tell yourself this is love. This is devotion. This is what it means to be a good woman. But it is not love. Is self-abandonment. Is the rejection of your own masculine. Is the refusal to be whole. Insight 10, the anger you cannot express. And beneath the shrinking, beneath the accommodating, beneath the giving, there is anger. Rage. Resentment. The fury of a woman who has made herself small for too long. Who has given too much. Who has received too little. Who has been unseen, unmet, unchosen. And this anger terrifies you because you were taught that anger is unfeminine, that rage is unacceptable, that a good woman does not feel fury. And so you push it down, swallow it, deny it, tell yourself you are not angry. You are just tired, just disappointed, just hurt. You make excuses for him. Blame yourself. Try harder. Give more. Anything to avoid feeling the rage that lives in your body. The rage that says, I am tired of making myself small. I am tired of giving so much and receiving so little. I am tired of being unseen. I am tired of waiting to be chosen. But the anger does not disappear, cannot be swallowed forever. It leaks out in passive aggression, in withdrawal, in the cold silence, in the cutting remark, in the way you punish him for not being what you need while never telling him what you need, in the way you resent him for not seeing you while you hide yourself, in the way you blame him for not choosing you while you do not choose yourself. You would say, this anger is sacred, is the voice of the unlived masculine, is the part of you that knows you deserve more, that knows you are worth more, that knows you have been betraying yourself. The anger is not the problem. The problem is that you have been taught to fear it, to suppress it, to see it as evidence that you are bad, wrong, unlovable. But the anger is actually the doorway, the invitation, the call to reclaim your power, to stop shrinking, to stop accommodating, to stop giving yourself away. The anger is the masculine rising, the part of you that says, enough, no more. I will not make myself small. I will not give my power away. I will not wait to be chosen. I will choose myself. And when you allow yourself to feel this anger fully, to honor it, to let it move through you, something shifts. The pattern begins to break. the compulsion to shrink begins to fade, and you begin to reclaim the masculine you have been projecting onto men. The strength, the clarity, the authority, the power to say no, the right to take up space, the permission to be whole. Inside 11, the fantasy versus the reality. Now look at the gap between the fantasy and the reality, between the man you hoped he would be and the man he actually is, between the relationship you imagined and the relationship you are actually living. This gap is where you have been living, in the hope, in the potential, in the belief that if you just love him enough, he will become the man you need him to be. Perhaps you have been living in the fantasy of his potential, seeing not who he is but who he could be, who he would be if he just healed his wounds, if he just did the work, if he just opened his heart, if he just chose you fully. And you have been waiting, hoping, believing that one day the potential will become reality, that one day he will transform, that one day he will be ready, that one day he will see you. Or perhaps you have been living in the fantasy of what the relationship could be, imagining the intimacy you will have when he finally lets you in, the connection you will share when he finally opens up, the partnership you will create when he finally shows up. And you have been working toward this fantasy, trying to make it real, giving more, being more patient, being more understanding, hoping that your effort will bridge the gap between what is and what could be. But Jung would say the fantasy is the projection, is you placing onto him what you wish were true, what you need to be true. What you cannot bear to accept is not true. The fantasy is you avoiding the reality that he is not going to change, that he is showing you exactly who he is, that the relationship is what it is, that the gap between the fantasy and the reality is not going to close, not because you are not trying hard enough, but because the fantasy was never real, was always projection. And living in the fantasy keeps you stuck, keeps you hoping, keeps you waiting, keeps you giving your power away. Because as long as you are focused on his potential, you do not have to face your own unlived potential. As long as you are trying to fix him, you do not have to do your own work. As long as you are waiting for him to change, you do not have to change yourself. The fantasy is a defense, a way of avoiding the truth that the relationship is not meeting your needs, the truth that you are betraying yourself by staying, the truth that you deserve more, the truth that you must choose yourself. Inside 12, the mirror reflects back. And so the mirror reflects back, shows you clearly, this is who you have been in relationship. This is the pattern you have been repeating. This is the masculine you have been projecting. This is the power you have been giving away. This is the anger you have been suppressing. This is the fantasy you have been living in. This is the reality you have been avoiding. The mirror does not judge, does not shame, simply shows. And in seeing clearly, you are given a choice. You can continue the pattern, continue choosing the same man, continue projecting your masculine, continue shrinking yourself, continue living in the fantasy, or you can choose differently, can choose to see, to own, to reclaim, to integrate, can choose to take back your power, to claim your strength, to honor your anger, to face the reality, to choose yourself. This is the gift of the mirror, not to show you what is wrong with you, but to show you what is asking to be integrated, what is calling to be claimed, what is waiting to be brought home. The masculine you have been seeking in men is yours. The strength you have been admiring in him is yours. The clarity you have been projecting onto him is yours. The authority you have been giving away is yours. And the journey now is to take it back, to withdraw the projection, to reclaim what has always belonged to you, to become whole. Now we descend deeper into the architecture of the psyche, into the structures that Jung mapped, into the understanding of how the animus forms, how it operates, how it shapes everything. This is not abstract theory. It is the blueprint of your inner world, the map of the territory you have been navigating without knowing. And in understanding the architecture, you gain the power to rebuild, to restructure, to create something new. Insight 13, the animus as psychological structure. Jung taught that the psyche is not random, is structured as architecture, and one of the fundamental structures in the female psyche is the animus, the inner masculine, not a metaphor, not a poetic idea, but an actual psychological complex, a constellation of images, emotions, thoughts, and energies that represent the masculine principle within the woman. The animus is autonomous, has its own life, its own voice, its own agenda. It can speak to you, can influence you, can take over your consciousness without you realizing it. When you hear that critical voice in your head telling you are not enough, that is often the animus. When you feel compelled to seek approval from men, that is the animus. When you project your power onto a lover, that is the animus operating unconsciously. Jung said the animus has levels, stages of development. At the most primitive level, it appears as physical power, as the strong man, the protector, the one who can do what you cannot do. At the next level, it becomes the man of action, the one who has initiative, who makes things happen, who moves in the world with purpose. At the third level, it becomes the man of words, the professor, the authority, the one who knows, who can explain, who has the answers. And at the highest level, the animus becomes the spiritual guide, the one who connects you to meaning, to purpose, to the transcendent. But most women never reach this level because the animus remains unconscious, remains projected, remains split off from the conscious personality. And so it operates in the shadows, influencing your choices, shaping your relationships, running your life without your awareness. The work of individuation is to make the animus conscious, to bring it into awareness, to integrate it into the personality, so that it is no longer an autonomous complex operating in the dark, but a conscious function, a source of strength, a connection to your own masculine energy, your own clarity, your own authority, your own spiritual depth. Insight 14, the collective unconscious and archetypal patterns. But the animus is not only personal, is not only shaped by your individual father. Jung taught that beneath the personal unconscious lies the collective unconscious, the deeper layer of the psyche that all humans share. And in the collective unconscious live the archetypes, the universal patterns, the primordial images that have existed since the beginning of human consciousness. The animus is one of these archetypes, is not just your personal experience of the masculine, but the collective experience, the accumulated wisdom and wounding of all women who have ever lived. The archetypal masculine that exists in myth, in fairy tale, in dream. The hero, the king, the warrior, the sage, the trickster, the destroyer. All of these are faces of the animus. And when you fall in love, you are not just falling in love with a man, or falling in love with an archetype, or recognizing in him one of these primordial patterns. Perhaps he is the hero, the one who will save you, rescue you, make everything right. Or perhaps he is the king, the one who has authority, who knows how to rule, who can give you structure and order. Or perhaps he is the warrior, the one who is strong, who can fight, who can protect. But the archetype is not the man. The man is simply the carrier, the one onto whom you project the archetypal energy. And this is why the beginning of relationship feels so powerful, so fated, so larger than life. Because you are not just meeting a person, or encountering an archetype, or touching something that lives in the collective unconscious, something ancient, something universal, something that carries the weight of all human experience. But the archetype cannot be lived by another person, can only be integrated within yourself. The hero you seek in him is the hero within you. The king you admire in him is your own inner authority. The warrior you are drawn to in him is your own capacity to fight for yourself. And until you integrate these archetypal energies, you will keep projecting them. Keep seeking them in men. Keep hoping they will carry for you what you must learn to carry yourself. Insight 15, the father complex and its transmission. Now we return to father, but with deeper understanding. Jung taught that the father complex is not just about your personal father. It is about the archetypal father. The father as symbol, as representative of the masculine principle, as the one who mediates between the child and the world, between the inner and the outer, between the personal and the collective. Your personal father carried the archetypal father, was the first representative of the masculine you encountered. And how he carried this archetype shaped your father complex. If he carried it well, with consciousness, with presence, with love, your father complex is positive. Your animus is integrated. Your relationship to the masculine is healthy. But if he carried it poorly, with unconsciousness, with absence, with wounding, your father complex is negative. Your animus is split off. Your relationship to the masculine is distorted. And the father complex is transmitted, passed down through generations. Your father carried his own father complex, his own wounding, his own unintegrated masculine, and he passed it to you. Not intentionally, not consciously, but through his presence or absence, through his words or silence, through his love or criticism, through what he could give and what he could not give. This is the architecture of intergenerational trauma, the way wounding moves through families, through lineages, through cultures. Your father's father wounded your father. Your father wounded you. And if you do not do the work of integration, you will wound your children, will pass on the same complex, the same split, the same unintegrated masculine. This is why the work matters. Why it is not just personal, is collective, is about breaking the chain, stopping the transmission, healing not just for yourself but for the lineage. Jung would say, you cannot change your father, cannot go back and make him different, cannot undo what was done, but you can change your relationship to the father complex, can make it conscious, can integrate what was split, can heal what was wounded, and in doing so, you free yourself, free your children, free the lineage. This is the power of individuation, is not just personal healing, is collective transformation. Insight 16, the anima and animus as contrasexual archetypes. Jung taught that every person carries within them both masculine and feminine, that the psyche is not one-sided, is not purely masculine or purely feminine, but contains both principles. In a woman, the conscious personality is typically feminine. The ego identifies as feminine, but in the unconscious lives the masculine, the animus, the contrasexual archetype. And in a man, the reverse is true. The conscious personality is typically masculine, but in the unconscious lives the feminine, the anima, the contrasexual archetype. And these contrasexual archetypes are the bridge, the mediator, the one who connects the conscious to the unconscious, the ego to the self, the personal to the collective. But when the contrasexual archetype is unconscious, it is projected. The woman projects her animus onto men, sees in them the masculine she cannot see in herself. The man projects his anima onto women, sees in them the feminine he cannot see in himself. And this creates the dynamic of romantic love, the feeling of completion, of finding your other half, of being made whole by another person. But Jung would say, this is illusion. You are not half, are already whole, already contain both masculine and feminine, already have within you everything you are seeking in another. The feeling of completion you experience in love is actually the recognition of your own wholeness. Is the unconscious masculine meeting the conscious feminine? Is the inner marriage, the sacred union, the hieros gamos? But you experience it as outer, as happening between you and another person, when actually it is happening within you. And this is why romantic love fades, why the initial passion cannot be sustained, because the projection cannot hold forever. Eventually you see the person as they actually are, not as the carrier of your animus, but as a human being, separate, different, not your other half. And you feel disappointed, betrayed, as if they changed, but they did not change. You simply withdrew the projection, saw clearly, and now you have a choice. Can leave and find another person to project onto, or can do the work of integration, can take back the projection, can claim the masculine within, can become whole not through another but through yourself. Insight 17, the logos and eros principles. Jung spoke of two fundamental principles, two ways of being in the world, logos and eros. Logos is the masculine principle, is about thinking, analyzing, discriminating, separating. Logos cuts, divides, makes distinctions, says this is this and that is that. Logos is clarity, is precision, is the sword that cuts through confusion. Eros is the feminine principle, is about feeling, relating, connecting, uniting. Eros joins, weaves, makes relationships, says this is connected to that and everything is connected to everything. Eros is flow, is receptivity, is the chalice that holds and contains. In a woman, Eros is typically dominant, is the primary way of being in the world. You relate, you connect, you feel, you weave relationships. This is your gift, your strength, your way of knowing. But Logos is in the unconscious, is carried by the animus. And when the animus is unconscious, Logos is either absent or distorted. If Logos is absent, you cannot think clearly, cannot analyze, cannot discriminate, cannot set boundaries, cannot say no. You are all Eros, all connection, all relationship, and you lose yourself, merge with others, cannot separate, cannot stand alone. If Logos is distorted, it becomes the inner critic, the harsh voice, the one that judges, that condemns, that cuts not with precision but with cruelty. The work of integration is to bring Logos into consciousness, to develop your capacity to think clearly, to analyze, to discriminate, to set boundaries, to say no, not to reject Eros, not to become masculine, but to integrate both principles, to be able to connect and to separate, to relate and to stand alone, to feel and to think, to be both chalice and sword. This is wholeness. This is the integration of the animus. This is what it means to be a complete human being. Insight 18, the journey of individuation. And so we come to individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming whole, of integrating what was split, of making conscious what was unconscious, of withdrawing projections, of claiming what was denied, of embodying both masculine and feminine, of becoming not half a person seeking completion in another, but a whole person capable of true relationship. Individuation is not easy, is not comfortable, requires you to face what you have been avoiding, to feel what you have been numbing, to own what you have been denying, requires you to see your shadow, your projections, your complexes, your wounds, requires you to take responsibility, to stop blaming, to stop waiting for someone else to save you, to stop seeking outside what can only be found inside. But individuation is also liberation, is freedom, is the end of the compulsive patterns, the repetitive relationships, the endless seeking, is the discovery that you are already whole, already complete, already have within you everything you need, is the realization that the masculine you have been seeking in men is yours, that the strength, the clarity, the authority you have been projecting is yours to claim. And when you individuate, relationship changes. is no longer about completion, about finding your other half, about being saved or fixed or made whole, is about two whole people choosing each other, meeting as equals, sharing their wholeness, creating something together not because they need each other but because they want each other, not from lack but from abundance, not from wounding but from healing, not from unconsciousness but from consciousness. This is the architecture, the structure of the psyche, the map Jung gave us, the understanding of how the animus forms, how it operates, how it can be integrated. And in understanding this architecture, you are given the tools, the knowledge, the power to rebuild, to restructure, to create a new relationship to the masculine within yourself and therefore in your relationships. This is the gift of depth psychology, is not just understanding, is transformation. Now we enter the shadows, the places you have been afraid to look, the parts of yourself you have been taught to reject, the fears that keep you from claiming your power, the cultural conditioning that keeps you small, the internalized voices that tell you integration is dangerous. This is the dark work, the descent into what has been hidden, but it is in the shadows that the gold is found, in the darkness that the light is born, in the facing of fear that freedom is claimed. Insight 19, the fear of being unfeminine. Perhaps the deepest fear is this, that if you claim you're masculine, if you integrate your animus, if you embody your strength, your clarity, your authority, you will no longer be feminine, will no longer be a woman, will become hard, harsh, unattractive, unlovable. This fear lives in the body, in the cellular memory, in the generations of conditioning that taught you that to be feminine is to be soft, yielding, accommodating. You were taught that strength is masculine, that power is masculine, that authority is masculine, that clarity is masculine, that boundaries are masculine, that saying no is masculine, and that if you embody these qualities, you will lose your femininity, will become something other than woman, will be rejected, abandoned, left alone. This fear is not irrational, is based on real experience, on the ways women have been punished for being strong, for speaking with authority, for taking up space, for refusing to accommodate. You have seen it, have felt it, have perhaps experienced it yourself. The way a strong woman is called aggressive, a clear woman is called harsh, a boundaried woman is called difficult, a woman who says no is called selfish. And so you learn to hide your strength, to soften your clarity, to apologize for your boundaries, to say yes when you meant no, to make yourself smaller, softer, easier, to perform femininity in a way that is acceptable, that does not threaten, that does not challenge, that keeps you safe, but also keeps you split, keeps you from wholeness, keeps you from integration. You would say true femininity is not the rejection of the masculine, is the integration of both. A woman who is whole is not less feminine, is more feminine, because she is no longer performing, no longer pretending, no longer splitting herself to fit an image. She is embodying the full spectrum of human qualities. the strength and the softness, the clarity and the compassion, the boundaries and the openness, the sword and the chalice. This is not unfeminine. This is complete femininity. This is what it means to be a whole woman. Inside 20, the fear of being alone. And beneath the fear of being unfeminine is another fear. The fear of being alone. The fear that if you stop seeking completion in men, if you stop projecting your animus, if you become whole within yourself, you will no longer need relationship, will no longer attract a partner, will end up alone. This fear whispers, if you are too strong, no man will want you. If you are too clear, you will intimidate men. If you are too independent, you will not need a man and therefore will not have one. If you claim your power, you will be alone. And this fear keeps you small, keeps you seeking, keeps you projecting, keeps you in the pattern of choosing men who cannot meet you, because at least then you are not alone. But Jung would say this fear is based on misunderstanding, on the belief that relationship is about need, about completion, about two halves making a whole. But true relationship is not about need, is about choice, is about two whole people choosing to share their lives, not because they need each other to be complete, but because they want to create something together, not from lack but from abundance. When you are whole, you do not attract less. You attract differently. You no longer attract men who need you to be small, who need you to carry their projections, who need you to be incomplete so they can feel needed. You attract men who are also whole, who are also integrated, who are also doing their work. And the relationship that forms is not about filling voids, is about sharing fullness, not about rescuing or being rescued, but about partnership, equality, mutual respect. And if you do not attract this kind of relationship, if you find yourself alone for a time, Jung would say this is not punishment, is preparation, is the space you need to do the work of integration, to become whole, to learn to be with yourself, to discover that you are enough, that you do not need another person to complete you, that you are already complete. And from this place of wholeness, when relationship comes, it comes as gift, not as necessity, as celebration, not as salvation. Insight 21, the fear of your own power. But perhaps the deepest fear is not about femininity or aloneness, is about power itself, about what it means to claim your full strength, your full authority, your full capacity. There is a fear that lives in women, a fear of being too much, too powerful, too big, too bright, a fear that if you fully embody your power, something terrible will happen. This fear has roots, has history. Women have been punished for power, have been burned, silenced, shamed, destroyed. The witch trials were not ancient history, were the systematic destruction of powerful women, of healers, of wise women, of those who knew too much, who saw too clearly, who could not be controlled. And this memory lives in the collective unconscious, lives in your body, lives in the fear that rises when you consider claiming your full power. And so you dim yourself, make yourself smaller, hide your gifts, downplay your knowing, apologize for your insight, question your authority, not because you are weak, but because you are afraid. Afraid of what happened to powerful women. Afraid it will happen to you. Afraid that if you shine too brightly, you will be destroyed. But Jung would say, the world needs your power, needs your strength, needs your clarity, needs your authority, needs you to stop hiding, to stop dimming, to stop making yourself small. The integration of the animus is not just personal healing, it is collective necessity. The world is out of balance. Too much unconscious masculine, too much power without wisdom, too much action without relationship, too much logos without eros. And women who integrate their animus, who embody both masculine and feminine, who can be both strong and compassionate, both clear and connected, both powerful and relational. These women are the medicine, are the bridge, are the ones who can bring balance, not by rejecting the masculine, but by integrating it consciously, by showing what it looks like to be whole, to be complete, to embody the full spectrum of human capacity. Insight 22, the cultural conditioning that keeps you split. And the fears are reinforced by culture, by the messages you receive every day, about what it means to be a woman, about what is acceptable, what is attractive, what is lovable. The culture tells you, be strong but not too strong. Be confident but not arrogant. Be ambitious but not threatening. Be independent but not intimidating. Be clear but not harsh. Have boundaries but do not be difficult. These are impossible standards, designed to keep you split, to keep you performing, to keep you trying to be acceptable rather than being whole. The culture does not want whole women. Wants women who are easy to control, easy to predict, easy to keep in their place. Whole women are dangerous, are unpredictable, cannot be controlled, cannot be kept small. And the culture uses relationship as the carrot. Tells you that if you are the right kind of woman, you will be loved, will find a partner, will be chosen. But if you are too much, too strong, too clear, too powerful, you will be alone, will be rejected, will be unwanted. And this keeps you performing, keeps you splitting yourself, keeps you rejecting your masculine, keeps you projecting onto men, keeps you seeking completion outside yourself. But Jung would say the culture is sick, is out of balance, is based on a split between masculine and feminine that is not natural, not healthy, not sustainable. And you cannot heal by conforming to a sick culture, can only heal by becoming whole, by integrating what the culture tells you to split, by embodying what the culture tells you to reject, by being what the culture tells you is impossible. A woman who is both strong and soft, both clear and compassionate, both powerful and relational, both masculine and feminine, whole. Insight 23, the internalized patriarch. And the culture is not just outside, is inside. You have internalized the patriarch, have taken in the voices, the judgments, the standards, the beliefs about what women should be, should not be, can be, cannot be. And these internalized voices operate like the negative animus, like the inner critic, telling you that you are too much or not enough, that you should be different, should be smaller, should be more acceptable. The internalized patriarch is the voice that says you are being too aggressive, too demanding, too difficult. The voice that tells you to smile more, to be nicer, to not make waves. The voice that questions your authority, doubts your knowing, dismisses your insight. The voice that makes you second guess yourself, apologize for yourself, shrink yourself. And this voice is insidious because it sounds like you, sounds like your own thoughts, your own judgments, your own beliefs, but it is not you. Is the internalized oppressor, is the patriarchy that you have taken into your own psyche that now operates from within, keeping you small, keeping you split, keeping you from integration. Jung would say you must recognize this voice, must see it clearly, must understand that it is not your truth, is the voice of conditioning, of culture, of generations of women who were taught to be small. And you must learn to talk back to this voice, to challenge it, to refuse it, to say, no, I will not make myself small. I will not apologize for my power. I will not shrink to make others comfortable. I am claiming my wholeness. I am integrating my masculine. I am becoming complete. And this is shadow work, is the work of making conscious what has been unconscious, of seeing clearly what has been hidden, of recognizing the internalized oppressor and refusing to let it run your life. This is not easy work, is confronting, is uncomfortable, but is necessary, because you cannot integrate the animus while the internalized patriarch is still in control, cannot claim your power while the inner critic is still telling you to be small, cannot become whole while you are still performing for an audience that does not want you whole. Insight 24, the shadow masculine and its gifts. But the shadow is not only about fear and conditioning, it is also about the rejected masculine itself. Jung taught that the shadow contains not only what is dark and difficult, but also what is bright and powerful. What you have rejected is not only your weakness, it is also your strength, your gifts, your gold. In the shadow masculine lives your power, your authority, your clarity, your capacity to say no, your ability to set boundaries, your strength to stand alone, your courage to speak truth, your willingness to take up space, your right to have needs, your permission to want, your capacity to lead, your ability to decide, your trust in your own knowing. All of this is in the shadow, waiting to be claimed. And when you integrate the shadow masculine, you do not become less feminine. You become more whole. You gain access to capacities you did not know you had. You discover strengths you did not know were yours. You find clarity you did not know was possible. You experience a groundedness, a centeredness, a sense of your own authority that changes everything. You stop seeking approval. Stop needing validation. Stop looking outside yourself for permission to be who you are. You trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Know your own worth. You set boundaries without guilt. Say no without apology. Take up space without shrinking. Speak your truth without softening. And you discover that this does not make you unfeminine, does not make you alone, does not make you dangerous, makes you whole, makes you free, makes you yourself. And from this wholeness, you can finally have real relationship. Not relationship based on projection, on need, on the hope that someone else will complete you, but relationship based on choice, on mutual respect, on two whole people sharing their lives. This is the gift of shadow work, is not only healing, is transformation, is the reclaiming of everything you were taught to reject. Everything you were told did not belong to you. Everything that was always yours. And now we come home, to integration, to wholeness, to the place where the journey has been leading all along, not to a destination outside yourself, but to the center within, to the discovery that what you have been seeking in men has always been yours. That the masculine you projected is ready to be claimed, that the wholeness you long for is already here, waiting. This is integration, not the end of the journey, but the beginning of living from wholeness, of relating from fullness, of loving from consciousness. This is coming home. Insight 25, reclaiming your inner masculine. The first step of integration is reclaiming, taking back what you have given away, withdrawing the projections you have placed on men, recognizing that the strength you admired in him is your strength, that the clarity you sought in him is your clarity, that the authority you deferred to in him is your authority. This is not easy, because you have been taught that these qualities do not belong to you. That to claim them is to be unfeminine, unattractive, unlovable. But Jung would say wholeness requires both, requires you to embody both the feminine and the masculine, not to reject your femininity, not to become masculine, but to integrate, to be able to be soft and strong, receptive and decisive, nurturing and boundaried, to flow like water and stain like stone, to hold like the chalice and cut like the sword. This is what it means to be whole, to have access to the full range of human qualities, to not be limited by gender, by conditioning, by fear. So you begin to practice, to embody the masculine you have been projecting. You practice speaking with clarity, saying what you mean, not softening your words, not apologizing for your truth. You practice making decisions, trusting your own judgment, not seeking external validation, not doubting yourself. You practice setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, without explanation, without making yourself small to make others comfortable. You practice taking up space, not shrinking, not accommodating, not adjusting yourself to fit. You practice standing alone, not needing constant connection, not making your happiness dependent on another, not losing yourself in relationship. You practice your own authority, not deferring, not seeking permission, not waiting to be chosen, but choosing yourself, trusting yourself, believing in yourself. And at first it feels uncomfortable, foreign, wrong. The inner critic rises, tells you are being too much, too harsh, too selfish, too masculine. But you recognize this voice now. No, it is the wounded animus, the internalized father, the patriarchal conditioning, and you do not let it stop you. You keep practicing, keep embodying, keep claiming what is yours, and slowly it begins to feel natural, right, true. You begin to feel more yourself, more whole, more powerful, not power over others, but power within, the power to be fully who you are. Insight 26, transforming the inner critic into the inner guide. As you reclaim your masculine, the inner critic begins to transform. The harsh voice that has been judging you, condemning you, telling you are not enough, begins to soften, begins to shift, begins to become something else. The inner guide, the voice of wisdom, the one who supports rather than attacks, who encourages rather than criticizes, who believes in you rather than doubts you. This transformation does not happen overnight. Requires patience, compassion, the willingness to meet the critic with understanding rather than resistance. You would say the critic is not your enemy. He is a wounded part of you, a part that learned to speak in the voice of the Father who could not love you as you needed, a part that is trying in its distorted way to protect you, to keep you safe, to prevent you from being hurt again. So you speak to the critic, not with anger, not with rejection, but with compassion. You say, I see you. I understand you. You learned to speak this way because it was the only way you knew to keep me safe. But I do not need this protection anymore. I am strong enough now, whole enough now. I can keep myself safe. And I need you to become something different, to become the guide, the one who supports me, who believes in me, who helps me trust myself. And slowly the critic softens. The harsh voice becomes gentle. The judgment becomes discernment. The condemnation becomes clarity. And you discover that the masculine within can be your greatest ally, your source of strength, your connection to your own wisdom, the one who helps you see clearly, decide wisely, act with authority, the one who says, you know what you need. You can trust yourself. You are capable. You are enough. This is the integrated animus, not the critic, not the projection, but the inner masculine functioning as it was meant to function, as the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, as the mediator between the inner and the outer, as the one who helps you bring your inner wisdom into outer action, who helps you embody your truth, who helps you live from your center. This is what integration looks like, feels like, lives like. Insight 27, healing the father wound from within. As the animus integrates, the father wound begins to heal. Not because your father changes, not because you go back and make the past different, but because you give yourself what he could not give. You become the good father to yourself, the one who sees you, who believes in you, who supports you, who loves you unconditionally. You learn to speak to yourself with the voice you always needed to hear, the voice that says, I see you, I am proud of you, You are doing well. You are enough exactly as you are. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to earn my love. I love you because you exist. Because you are mine. Because you are you. This is the voice of the integrated animus. The inner father. The one who gives you what the outer father could not. And as you give this to yourself, something miraculous happens. The longing for Father stops. The compulsion to seek his approval in every man you meet dissolves. The pattern of choosing men who cannot see you, cannot choose you, cannot love you, breaks. Because you are no longer seeking Father, are no longer trying to heal the original wound through a lover, are healing it yourself, from within, through the integration of your own masculine, through becoming whole. This does not mean you no longer feel the pain of what was lost, the grief of what you never received, the sadness of the father who could not be what you needed. You feel it. You honor it. You allow yourself to mourn, but you do not let it run your life. Do not let it determine your choices. Do not let it keep you stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. You feel the grief, and then you choose yourself. You give yourself what he could not give, and you move forward, whole, free, healed. Insight 28, meeting a partner from wholeness. And now relationship becomes possible in a new way. Not relationship as completion. Not relationship as healing. Not relationship as the search for the missing piece. But relationship as the meeting of two whole people. Two individuals who have done their work. Who have integrated their contrasexual archetypes. Who are no longer projecting. No longer seeking outside what can only be found inside. When you meet a partner from wholeness, everything is different. You are not drawn to him because he carries your animus, because he has the strength you lack, the clarity you need, the authority you seek. You are drawn to him because of who he actually is, not because of what you project onto him. You see him clearly, as a human being, separate, different, not your other half, not your completion, but another whole person. And you can be yourself with him, fully, completely, without shrinking, without accommodating, without giving your power away. You can be strong and he does not feel threatened. You can be clear and he does not feel attacked. You can have boundaries and he does not feel rejected. Because he is also whole, also integrated, also not seeking in you what he should find in himself. The relationship is not about need, it is about want. You do not need him to complete you, to save you, to make you whole. You want him. Choose him. Desire him. But from fullness, from abundance, from the overflow of your own wholeness. And he wants you, chooses you, desires you, from his fullness, his abundance, his wholeness. And together you create something, not because you are incomplete without each other, but because two whole people choosing each other create something more, something richer, something deeper. This is conscious relationship, relationship from individuation, relationship as the meaning of two sovereign beings who honor each other's wholeness, who support each other's growth, who do not try to fix or change or complete each other, but who witness, who celebrate, who love not from need but from freedom. This is what becomes possible when you integrate the animus, when you become whole, when you stop seeking outside what you have found inside. Insight 29, the sacred marriage within. Jung spoke of the hieros gomos, the sacred marriage, the inner union of masculine and feminine. This is the goal of individuation, not to find your other half outside, but to marry the masculine and feminine within, to bring them into conscious relationship, into balance, into harmony, into union. This inner marriage is not a one-time event, it is an ongoing practice, a daily choosing, a constant returning to center, to wholeness, to the integration of opposites. Some days you will be more in your feminine, flowing, receptive, connecting, and that is right. Other days you will be more in your masculine, decisive, boundaried, acting, and that is also right. The goal is not to be balanced every moment, but to have access to both, to be able to move fluidly between them, to embody what is needed in each moment. The sacred marriage is also the end of inner conflict, the end of the war between the parts of yourself, the feminine that wants to connect and the masculine that wants to separate, the part that wants to give and the part that wants to receive, the part that wants to be soft and the part that wants to be strong. When the inner marriage happens, these are no longer in conflict, are in dialogue, in dance, in creative tension, each honoring the other, each making space for the other, each recognizing that both are needed, both are sacred, both are you. And from this inner union comes a deep peace, a settledness, a sense of being at home in yourself. You are no longer split, no longer at war with yourself, no longer rejecting parts of yourself. You are whole, complete, integrated, and from this wholeness, you move in the world differently, relate differently, love differently, live differently. This is the gift of the sacred marriage. Is not just psychological integration, is spiritual wholeness, is coming home to yourself. Insight 30, living from the integrated self. And so you live from wholeness, from integration, from the center of yourself. You no longer seek outside what you have found inside. No longer project onto others what you have claimed in yourself. No longer wait for someone else to save you, complete you, make you whole. You are already whole, already complete, already everything you need. You move through the world with a new confidence, not arrogance, not the need to prove yourself, but the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are, who trusts themselves, who does not need external validation. You speak your truth, set your boundaries, make your decisions, take up your space, not apologetically, not aggressively, but naturally, easily, as your birthright. You relate to others differently, no longer from need, from lack, from the hope that they will give you what you cannot give yourself, but from fullness, from abundance, from the overflow of your own wholeness. You can be intimate without losing yourself, can be connected without merging, can love without needing, can give without depleting, because you are full, are whole, are complete within yourself. And you discover that this is what you have been seeking all along. Not a man, not a relationship, not external validation or approval or love, but this sense of being at home in yourself, this feeling of wholeness, this integration of all that you are. This is what the soul has been calling you toward. Through every failed relationship, through every repeated pattern, through every projection and every wound, the soul has been calling you home, to yourself, to your wholeness, to your integration. This is the journey of the animus, from projection to integration, from seeking outside to finding inside, from fragmentation to wholeness, from unconsciousness to consciousness. And now you live from this place, from the integrated self, from the sacred marriage within, from the wholeness that was always yours, that was always waiting, that was always here. Welcome home. The journey is complete. You've traveled far tonight, through shadows, through light, through depths most never see. Your mind has done its work. You can rest now. This is the still point, your anchor in the sea of thought, a place you can always return to whenever the world becomes too loud. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting this space, for trusting yourself. Sleep well. Good night.